Welcome back to All Things African. Today, we're diving into a fascinating and critical topic: how different legal systems in history were used to control and oppress people of African descent. Specifically, we'll be comparing the Black Codes of America, the French Code Noir, and the Spanish Papal Bulls. These were all legal frameworks designed to maintain racial hierarchies and enforce the subjugation of African and African-descended people. Before we get started, like, share, and subscribe. First up, the Black Codes. After the Civil War ended in 1865 and slavery was abolished, Southern states in the U.S. quickly passed these laws to restrict the newfound freedoms of African Americans. The goal? To keep African Americans economically dependent and socially inferior to whites. The Black Codes made it nearly impossible for African Americans to own property, vote, or even move freely. They were also forced into labor contracts that resembled slavery. And if you were found without a job, you could be arrested and forced to work, essentially turning freedom into another form of bondage. In essence, the Black Codes were about maintaining the racial hierarchy and keeping African Americans in a subordinate position. Make sure to leave a comment. Next, let's talk about the Code Noir, or the Black Code, issued by King Louis XIV of France in 1685. This was a set of laws specifically for French colonies in the Americas, designed to regulate the lives of enslaved Africans and solidify the institution of slavery. Under the Code Noir, slaves were considered personal property with no legal rights. The law also dictated that enslaved Africans must be baptized and educated in the Catholic faith, but this was more about control than compassion. Slave owners were required to provide minimal care for their slaves, but harsh punishments were also legally sanctioned for any form of resistance. The Code Noir didn't just maintain slavery, it reinforced the idea that black people were inherently inferior and needed to be controlled through religion and violence. Finally, we have the Spanish Papal Bulls. These were decrees issued by the Pope in the 15th century that gave Spain and Portugal the green light to conquer and colonize non-Christian lands. But these weren't just political documents, they also had a deeply religious aspect. In 1493, Pope Alexander VI issued a papal bull called Intercitera, which essentially divided the world between Spain and Portugal and justified the enslavement and conversion of indigenous peoples. This provided a religious justification for the brutal colonization practices that followed, including the transatlantic slave trade. The papal bulls helped to shape a worldview where non-European, non-Christian peoples were seen as less than, and this ideology fueled centuries of racial oppression. Now, let's compare these three legal frameworks. Although they were created in different times and places, they all served similar purposes: maintaining racial hierarchies, justifying economic exploitation, and, in some cases, using religion as a tool for control. The Black Codes and the Code Noir were primarily about maintaining control over black populations, one after slavery ended, and the other to uphold it. The Papal Bulls, meanwhile, provided the religious and moral cover needed to kickstart European colonization and the transatlantic slave trade. All three systems contributed to the long-lasting legacies of racism and inequality that we still see today. So, whether it's the Black Codes of America, the Code Noir of France, or the Spanish Papal Bulls, each of these legal systems played a crucial role in shaping the oppressive structures that African and African-descended people have had to fight against for centuries. Understanding these historical frameworks helps us see the roots of systemic racism and why the struggle for equality continues. Thanks for joining us on this journey through history. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to All Things African. And as always, let's keep the conversation going in the comments below. What do you think about these legal codes and their impact on today's world? Stay curious.